The bridge of the exploration ship Horizon's Edge hummed quietly as it moved through the dark space between stars. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the endless black void on the main screen. Stars twinkled like tiny diamonds scattered across velvet. It was peaceful out here, far from Earth and the busy shipping lanes. Jake had been captain of the Horizon's Edge for 3 years now. His ship was not the biggest or strongest in the Terran fleet, but it was fast and well equipped for long range missions. The crew of 48 people had become like family to him during their journeys to map new star systems and search for signs of alien life. So far, they had found nothing but empty worlds and silent space. Some scientists back on Earth were starting to think humans might be alone in the universe. Jake hoped they were wrong. The galaxy was too big and too full of possibilities for Earth to be the only world with life. Lisa Park looked up from her communication station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel like a pianist. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, but not like anything in our databases. The pattern is too complex to be natural, but it's not using any known Earth frequencies." Lisa frowned at her screens. "And it's really weak. Whatever is sending it must be very far away." Navigator Ben Carter spoke up from his station near the front of the bridge. Ben was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many years of space travel. "I can confirm the direction. The signal is coming from bearing 27 Mark 4. That puts it about 15 light years away, near the edge of our current mission area." Jake stood and walked over to Lisa's station. The communications array was one of the most advanced pieces of equipment on the ship, able to pick up radio waves from incredible distances. "Can you clean up the signal? Make it clearer?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "I'm trying, but there's a lot of interference. It's like the signal is breaking apart as it travels through space." She paused and looked up at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, I think this might be a distress call." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and listened. The only sounds were the soft hum of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of the monitoring systems. Amy Stone, the chief engineer, climbed up from the lower level where she had been checking the power systems. Amy was a small woman with red hair tied back in a ponytail, but she knew more about starship engines than anyone Jake had ever met. "What's going on up here?" "The whole ship feels tense." "We might have found aliens," Ben said simply. Amy's eyes went wide. She quickly moved to an empty station and started bringing up technical displays. "Are you serious? After all these years of looking?" Jake held up his hand for quiet. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Lisa, how long will it take to clean up this signal?" "Give me 20 minutes, maybe 30. The computer needs time to filter out all the background noise." Lisa was already working, her screens filled with wave patterns and mathematical equations. "Do it," Jake ordered. He touched a button on his chair's arm. "All hands, this is the captain. We have detected what may be an artificial signal of unknown origin. All department heads report to the bridge immediately." Within minutes, the bridge was crowded with the ship's senior officers. Carlos Rodriguez, the security chief, was a big man with dark skin and serious eyes. He had served in the Terran military before joining the exploration service. Dr. Kate Adams, the ship's doctor and scientist, was a quiet woman in her 30s, who spent most of her time in the medical bay or the research labs. Nick Davis, the tactical officer, was young and eager, always ready for action. "What do we have, Lisa?" Jake asked. Lisa looked up from her work, excitement clear on her face. "I've managed to isolate the core signal. Captain, this is definitely artificial, and it's definitely a distress call." She pressed a button, and strange sounds filled the bridge. It was like music, but not human music. The tones rose and fell in patterns that seemed almost like speech, but in no language anyone had ever heard. "Can you translate it?" Dr. Adams asked, leaning forward with interest. "The computer is trying to find patterns, but it will take time. However, I did find something interesting." Lisa brought up a new display on the main screen. It showed a star map with dozens of bright points connected by glowing lines. This was included with the distress call. "I think it's a map of star systems." Ben studied the map carefully. "I can match some of these star positions with our own charts. If I'm right, this signal is coming from a group of systems about 3 weeks away at maximum speed." 3 weeks? Amy looked worried. "That's a long way from any Terran patrol routes. If we go that far out, we'll be completely on our own." Carlos crossed his arms. "And we don't know what we're flying into. This could be a trap." Jake looked at each of his officers. These people had followed him across the galaxy, trusting his judgment in situations no human had ever faced before. Now he had to make a decision that could change everything. "Lisa, keep working on that translation. I want to know exactly what that message says. Ben, plot a course to the signal's origin point, but don't engage the engines yet. Amy, I need a full report on our supplies and fuel. Can we make a 3-week journey and still have enough to get back?" "It'll be tight, but possible," Amy replied after checking her datapad. Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the alien star, map still glowing on the main screen. Somewhere out there, beings from another world were calling for help. For the first time in human history, Earth's children had the chance to answer. "Carlos, what's your gut feeling about this?" The security chief was quiet for a long moment. "In my experience, Captain, people don't send distress calls unless they're really in trouble. If these aliens are in danger and we ignore them..." He shrugged. "I don't think I could live with that." Jake nodded slowly. Sometimes the hardest decisions were also the most important ones. "Lisa, how's that translation coming?" "Almost there, Captain. The computer has identified basic language patterns. Give me 5 more minutes." Those 5 minutes felt like hours. The bridge crew waited in tense silence as Lisa worked to unlock the meaning of humanity's first message from the stars. Finally, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "Captain, you need to hear this." Lisa's voice shook as she read the translated message aloud. "We are the Villani Republic. Our worlds are dying. The Korthax Empire comes with ships of war and death. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We know only peace and creation. Please, if any kind beings hear this message, help us. We are 43 worlds with 6 billion souls. In 7 days, the Korthax will reach our capital. We will all be gone. Please help us." The bridge fell completely silent. Jake felt his heart beating faster as the meaning of the words sank in. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an entire civilization was about to be destroyed. 6 billion people who had never hurt anyone were going to die unless someone helped them. "Play it again," Jake said quietly. Lisa pressed the button, and the alien voice filled the bridge once more. It was beautiful and sad, like singing that carried pain and hope at the same time. Even through the computer translation, everyone could hear the fear and desperation. Dr. Adams wiped tears from her eyes. "They sound so frightened. How long ago was this message sent?" Jake asked. Ben checked his navigation computer. "Based on the signal strength and distance, I estimate it was broadcast about 4 days ago. If they said 7 days until the enemy arrives, that gives us maybe 3 days left." Carlos looked grim. 3 days to travel 3 weeks. Even if we left right now at maximum speed, we wouldn't make it in time. Jake stared at the alien star map still glowing on the screen. Each dot of light represented a world full of living beings who would soon be dead if no one helped them. Amy, what would happen if we pushed the engines past their safety limits? Amy's face went pale. Captain, that's incredibly dangerous. The fusion reactors could overload. The ship could tear itself apart from the stress. But could we make it in time? Amy was quiet for a long moment, running calculations in her head. Maybe, if we ran the engines at 120% power and took some shortcuts through dangerous space regions, we might cut the travel time to 18 or 20 hours. But there's a good chance we'd burn out the engines completely. We might not be able to get home. Jake looked around at his crew. These people had families back on Earth. They had signed up for exploration, not for a suicide mission to save aliens they had never met. He had no right to ask them to risk their lives. Captain, Nick said suddenly, I've been thinking about that enemy they mentioned, the Korthax Empire. If they're powerful enough to threaten 43 worlds, what could one human ship do against them? It was a good question. The Horizon's Edge was built for exploration, not war. It had basic defensive weapons and shields, but nothing that could fight an entire enemy fleet. We won't know until we get there and see what we're dealing with. Jake replied, Lisa, send an emergency message back to Earth Command. Tell them about the Velani distress call and request immediate backup. If there's a military fleet in this sector, we're going to need it. Yes, sir. Lisa's hands moved quickly over her controls. Message sent, but it will take at least 6 hours to reach Earth, and any response will take just as long to get back to us. Jake made his decision. Ben, plot the fastest course to the Velani system. Amy, start preparing the engines for overload operations. Carlos, get security teams ready for anything. Nick, run simulations on our weapon systems. Captain, Doctor. Adam said softly, Are we really going to do this? Risk everything for people we've never met? Jake looked at her, then at each member of his crew. Doctor, what would you want aliens to do if Earth was under attack and we sent out a distress call? She nodded slowly. I'd want them to come help us. Then that's what we're going to do. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Amy and her engineering team worked frantically to modify the engines for the dangerous high-speed run. Ben plotted a course that would take them through 3 different nebulae and past 2 unstable stars, cutting precious time off their journey. Carlos organized the ship's small security force and checked all their weapons, stood on the bridge watching his crew work. They had not questioned his decision. They understood that sometimes doing the right thing meant taking risks. This was what made humans special, he thought. When good people were in trouble, humans would always try to help, no matter how dangerous it might be. Engineering reports ready for departure, Amy announced over the ship's communication system. All systems are prepared for extended overload operation. Navigation course is locked in, Ben reported. We can depart as soon as you give the order. Jake sat down in his command chair and activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we will begin a dangerous journey to help an alien species under attack. I want everyone to know that this mission is completely voluntary. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to the nearest space station. You will face no punishment or shame for making that choice. He waited, but no one moved toward the shuttle bays. Very well. Today, the human race answers its first distress call from the stars. Whatever happens next, we go forward together. Jake turned to Ben. Engage engines. Maximum speed. The ship lurched forward as the powerful engines came to life. Soon they were moving faster than the Horizon's Edge had ever moved before. The stars on the main screen turned into long white lines as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. For the next 18 hours, the ship raced through space at a speed that made The walls vibrate and the lights flicker. Amy and her team watch the engines constantly, making tiny adjustments to keep the fusion reactors from exploding. Everyone held their breath and hoped the ship would hold together. Finally, Ben announced, dropping out of faster-than-light, "Travel in 30 seconds." The stars on the screen returned to normal points of light. Ahead of them was a yellow sun very much like Earth's sun, surrounded by several planets. But something was wrong. Instead of the peaceful world they had hoped to find, space around the planets was filled with the bright flashes of weapons fire. "My God," Dr. Adams whispered. The Vellani system was already under attack. Huge dark ships moved between the planets, like sharks hunting fish. Smaller, more elegant vessels tried to defend themselves, but they were clearly losing the battle. Explosions lit up the darkness as beautiful alien ships died one by one. "Captain," Nick said, his voice tight with shock, "I'm reading over 200 enemy vessels. They're attacking everything that moves." Jake gripped his command chair tighter. They had arrived just in time to watch an entire civilization die. "All stop," he ordered. "Lisa, scan for any Vellani ships that are still fighting. See if you can make contact." "I'm trying, Captain, but there's a lot of interference from all the weapons fire." Jake stared at the battle raging ahead of them. One small human ship against 200 alien warships. The smart thing would be to turn around and go home. The safe thing would be to report what they had seen and let someone else deal with it. But Jake Morrison had not come this far to turn. "Back now. Red alert," he announced. "All hands to battle stations." The Horizon's Edge moved carefully through the edge of the battle zone. Jake watched the main screen as massive enemy ships hunted down the remaining Vellani vessels. The alien ships were beautiful, with smooth curves and crystal-like surfaces. That caught the light from explosions. But they were clearly not built for war. "Captain, I'm getting a response from one of the Vellani ships," Lisa announced. Her voice was tight with excitement and fear. "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the face of an alien being unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The creature had large, gentle eyes that seemed to glow with their own soft light. Its skin looked like pale blue crystal, and when it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself." "Are you here to help us?" The alien's words came through the translation system with a note of desperate hope. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran vessel Horizon's Edge. We received your distress call. We are here to help." The alien's eyes grew even larger. "Terran? We do not know this word. But you came. Someone actually came." Tears seemed to flow down the creature's crystalline face. "I am Coordinator Zephys of the Vellani Republic. We have lost so many ships already. The Korthax show no mercy." "How many of your vessels are still fighting?" Jake asked. "Perhaps 30 of our original 200 ships remain operational. We are not warriors, Captain Morrison. We do not understand war. Our ships are built for exploration and trade, not battle." On the tactical display, Nick was tracking the enemy. "Movements. Captain, the Korthax ships are huge. Each one is at least 10 times bigger than us. They're using some kind of plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles. Nothing too advanced, but with their numbers advantage, they don't need to be fancy." Jake studied the battle. The Korthax ships moved in straight lines, attacking anything that moved. They showed no tactical creativity, just brute force. "They fight like bullies," he said to himself. "Captain," Carlos said from his security station, "I've been watching their attack patterns. These Korthax aren't professional soldiers. They're used to fighting people who can't fight back. Look how they bunch up their ships. A real military force would never leave themselves that exposed." Jake began to see possibilities. "Lisa, Can you patch me through to all the remaining Vellani ships? Working on it now, Captain. Within moments, Jake was speaking to 30 Vellani ship commanders. Most of them looked as frightened and confused as Coordinator Zephys. None of them had any real military training. Listen to me carefully, Jake told them. I know you're not warriors, but you're going to have to learn fast if you want to survive. The enemy is strong, but they're not smart. We can use that against them. What do you mean? Asked one Vellani captain, a female with darker blue crystal skin. Your ships may not have weapons, but they have something the enemy doesn't expect: speed and shields. I'm going to teach you basic combat maneuvers. It won't be easy, but it's your only chance. For the next hour, Jake ran an impossible school session while the battle raged around them. He taught the Vellani pilots how to fly in formation, how to use their superior speed to avoid enemy fire, and how to coordinate their attacks. Amy worked with the Vellani engineers through the communication links, showing them how to modify their mining tools and industrial equipment into weapons. The Vellani had powerful energy systems designed for cutting through asteroids and building space stations. With some creative thinking, these tools could become dangerous weapons. The key is to never fight them head-on, Jake explained to his alien students. Hit them fast, hit them hard, then get away before they can respond. Make them chase you, then lead them into traps. Dr. Adams set up emergency medical protocols to treat wounded Vellani. She discovered that their crystal-like bodies conducted energy differently than human flesh, but they could still be treated with modified human medical techniques. The Horizon's Edge led the first coordinated attack. Jake brought his ship in fast and low, using the gravity of the largest planet to slingshot around and hit a Korvax vessel from an unexpected angle. The human ship's weapons were small compared to the enemy's massive guns, but they were precise and powerful. Target their engine sections, Nick called out as he fired the ship's particle beams. Their armor is thickest in front but weaker in the back. The Korvax ship lurched as its engines exploded. It began spinning out of control, crashing into another enemy vessel. It worked, shouted one of the Vellani pilots over the radio. We saw what you did. We can do this too. The battle began to change. Instead of helpless victims being hunted down, the Vellani ships started fighting back as a coordinated force. They used their speed to dart in and out of the enemy formation, striking at weak points and then disappearing before the Korvax could respond. But the enemy had numbers, and their commander was getting angry. Captain, Lisa said, monitoring enemy communications, I'm picking up signals from the Korvax flagship. Someone called Warlord. Krex is ordering all ships to ignore our hit-and-run attacks and focus on destroying the planet's cities. Jake felt his blood run cold. They're going to massacre civilians. On the screen, the largest Korvax ship began moving toward the beautiful blue and green world below. It was followed by 50 other vessels, all with their weapons pointed downward. Coordinator Zephys, Jake called over the radio. How many people live on that planet? 3 billion souls, Captain Morrison. Men, women, and children who have never known violence. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was exhausted from the constant fighting, and their ship was damaged from several enemy hits. They had maybe enough ammunition for one more major battle. Against 50 massive warships, they had no chance of winning, but they had to try. All Vellani ships, this is Morrison. Form up on my position. We're going to stop that fleet from reaching the planet. Captain, Carlos said quietly, we can't fight 50 ships at once. They'll destroy us. Maybe, Jake replied. But we're going to make them pay for every inch. A small combined fleet of human and Vellani ships moved to intercept the enemy bombardment force. It was 31 ships against 50, and most of the Allied vessels were lightly armed. By any reasonable calculation, they were about to be. Completely destroyed. Jake opened a channel to his entire crew. All hands, we knew this mission was dangerous when we started. Now we have a chance to save 3 billion innocent lives. I can't think of a better reason to risk everything. The enemy fleet grew larger on the screen as both forces rushed toward each other. In minutes, they would meet in the space between the planet and its largest moon. Jake knew this would probably be his last battle, but he also knew it was the right thing to do. "Weapons ready," Nick reported. "All ships, prepare to engage," Jake ordered. Then something impossible happened. Long-range sensors detected new ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Big ships. Human ships. "Captain," Ben said, his voice filled with amazement. "It's the Terran Defense Fleet. They're here." Jake smiled for the first time in hours. "Well, I'll be damned." The cavalry just arrived. The space around the Velani homeworld suddenly filled with new ships as the Terran Defense Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful in his entire life. Dozens of sleek human warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the reflected light of the system's star. Leading the fleet was the massive battleship Constitution, twice the size of any Korthax vessel. Behind it came heavy cruisers, destroyers, and fast attack ships, all moving with the precise coordination that only came from years of training and experience. "This is Admiral Grace Kelly of the Terran Defense Fleet," came a strong female voice. Over the radio. "Captain Morrison, we received your emergency message. Sorry, we're a little late to the party." Jake felt relief wash over him like cool water. "Admiral, am I glad to hear your voice. We have 50 Korthax ships moving to bombard the planet. 3 billion civilians are about to die." "Not on my watch," Admiral Kelly replied. Her voice was calm, but carried the steel of someone who had fought many battles. "All fleet units, this is Admiral Kelly. We have hostile forces threatening civilian populations. Rules of engagement are weapons free. Show these bullies what happens when they pick on innocent people." The Korthax fleet had been moving confidently toward the planet, expecting no real resistance. When the human warships appeared, their neat formation began to break apart as individual captains tried to decide whether to fight or run. "Warlord," Krex's angry voice came over the communication channels that Lisa was monitoring. "What are these new ships? Where did they come from?" "All vessels. Destroy the newcomers immediately." But the Korthax ships were built for terrorizing peaceful worlds, not fighting other warships. The human vessels were different. Every line of their design spoke of speed, power, and deadly efficiency. These were ships built by a species that had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Captain Roy Turner's heavy cruiser Defiant led the Fiant. First attack. The ship moved like a hunting cat, fast and silent until it struck. Its weapons lit up the darkness as particle beams and plasma cannons tore through the hull of a Korthax vessel. The enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. "Target destroyed," Turner reported calmly, moving to engage next hostile. Captain Sue Walsh brought her destroyer Thunderbolt in from the side, using the wreckage of space stations as cover. Her ship was smaller than the enemy vessels, but it moved 3 times faster. The Korthax captains tried to turn their massive ships to follow her, but she was already gone, leaving another burning wreck behind. Jake watched in amazement as the human fleet tore through the enemy formation like wolves hunting sheep. The Korthax had numbers, but the humans had something more important. They had skill, experience, and ships designed for real combat. "Nick, take us in to support the fleet," Jake ordered. "Coordinate with the Velani ships. Let's show them how." This teamwork really works. The Horizon's Edge and its alien allies joined the battle with new confidence. Now they were part of a real fleet, not just desperate survivors trying to hold off impossible odds. The Velani pilots, who had learned their first combat lessons just hours before, flew alongside human veterans who had been fighting in space for decades. Commander Alex Gray led a squadron of human fighters in a precision strike against the Korthax flagship. His small ships darted between the massive enemy guns like angry hornets, too fast and too small for the big weapons to track. While the enemy tried to swat the fighters, larger human ships moved in to deliver killing blows. This is how you fight. A real navy, Jake said to Coordinator Zephy's over the radio. Notice how every ship has a job, and everyone trusts their teammates to do their part. The Velani commander's crystalline features showed wonder and fear at the same time. Your people fight with such precision. It is like watching a deadly dance. The battle was not completely one-sided. Several human ships took damage from Lucky. Enemy hits. The Korthax vessels might have been clumsy, but their weapons were still dangerous. The destroyer Lightning lost its main engines when 3 enemy ships caught it in a crossfire. 2 Velani ships were destroyed while trying to rescue. Human pilots from a damaged fighter, but for every human or Velani ship that was hit, 5 Korthax vessels were destroyed. The enemy had expected to fight helpless civilians, not professional warriors, backed by some of the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Dr. Adams worked frantically in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members and coordinating with medical teams on other ships. She had already learned how to treat Velani injuries, and now she was sharing that knowledge with doctors throughout the fleet. The Velani physiology is fascinating, she reported to Admiral Kelly during a brief break in the fighting. Their crystal-based biology actually makes them more resistant to certain types of damage than humans are. If we can figure out how to replicate some of their natural healing abilities, it could revolutionize battlefield medicine. Meanwhile, Amy Stone was working with Velani engineers to combine human and alien technology in real time. The Velani ship's advanced shield systems were being integrated with human weapons, creating hybrid vessels that were stronger than either species could build alone. "Captain," Lisa called out, "I'm monitoring Korthax communications. Their formation is falling apart. Individual ships are trying to retreat, but Warlord Crux is ordering them to keep fighting." On the main screen, Jake could see the enemy flagship, a massive black vessel covered with spikes and weapons. It was still fighting, but most of its escort ships were either destroyed or fleeing. Crux was learning the hard way that bullying peaceful aliens was very different from fighting humans. Commander Luke Foster led a Marine boarding party against one of the smaller Korthax ships. His armored soldiers moved through the enemy vessel like ghosts, capturing key systems and taking prisoners. The Korthax warriors were big and strong, but they fought like individuals, not as a team. Human Marines who had trained together for years cut through them with almost surgical precision. "Boarding complete," Foster reported. "We have secured the enemy vessel and taken 47 prisoners." These aliens have no concept of modern military tactics. They fight like pirates, not soldiers. Admiral Kelly's voice came over the fleet communication channel. "All ships the enemy is breaking. Do not pursue fleeing vessels beyond the edge of the system. Our mission is to protect the Velani, not to hunt down every last enemy ship." Jake nodded approvingly. This was the difference between humans and the Korthax. Humans fought to protect people, not for the joy of killing. The battle was ending, but Warlord Crux was not ready to give up. His flagship began moving toward the planet again, all weapons charging for a final attack. "He's going to try to destroy the cities before he retreats," Nick warned. "Not if I can help it," Admiral Kelly replied. The Constitution turned majestically, and began moving to intercept the enemy flagship. The two largest ships in the system were about to meet in single combat. The Constitution and Warlord Krex's flagship met in the space between the planet and its largest moon. The two massive ships circled each other like ancient warriors, preparing for single combat. Jake watched from the bridge of the horizon's edge as the most powerful vessels in the system prepared to fight. All ships maintain distance. Admiral Kelly ordered over the fleet channel. This is between me and the Korthax leader. Krex's ship was larger than the Constitution, covered with ugly spikes and crude armor plating. It looked like something built by people who thought fear was more important than function. The human battleship was different. Every line was clean and purposeful, designed by engineers who understood that real strength came from precision, not intimidation. Unknown Commander. Krex's rough voice came over the communication system. You have destroyed my fleet and ruined my conquest. I will make you pay for this interference. Admiral Kelly's response was calm and professional. Warlord Krex, you are guilty of attempted genocide against the Valani Republic. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to galactic law. Krex's harsh laughter filled the radio waves. The Korthax Empire does not surrender to anyone. We take what we want and destroy what we cannot use. Today you will learn why the galaxy fears us. The two ships opened fire at the same time. Krex's vessel unleashed a storm of plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles, trying to overwhelm the human ship with pure firepower. The Constitution responded with precise, targeted shots from its advanced particle beam arrays. The difference in fighting styles was obvious from the first exchange. The Korthax ship fired wildly, hoping to hit something important. The human battleship aimed carefully, each shot designed to disable specific systems on the enemy vessel. Their weapons are powerful, but primitive, Nick observed as he watched. The tactical display. They're using brute force tactics that went out of style on Earth 200 years ago. The battle continued for 20 minutes. Slowly, methodically, Admiral Kelly's ship began to take apart the enemy flagship. First, the Korthax lost their long-range sensors. Then their secondary weapons went offline. Finally, their main engines began to fail. Warlord Krex, Admiral Kelly called over the radio. Your ship is crippled. Surrender now and spare your crew unnecessary death. Never, Krex roared back. If I cannot have victory, I will have revenge. The Korthax flagship suddenly changed course, heading directly for the planet below. Even with damaged engines, the massive ship could still cause terrible destruction. If it crashed into one of the Valani cities, he's going to ram the planet, Dr. Adams said in horror. Admiral Kelly's voice was ice cold. I don't think so. The Constitution's main guns, which had been holding back during the fight, suddenly came to full power. 3 massive particle beams struck the enemy ship simultaneously, tearing through its hull like paper. Krex's flagship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. The Korthax Empire's reign of terror in this sector was overdone in the days that followed. The full scope of Korthax crimes became clear. Jake led investigation teams to the outer worlds of the Valani Republic, working with Dr. Adams and a new team member, xenoanthropologist Dr. Eric Cole. What they found made even hardened soldiers sick to their stomachs. The Korthax had not just been conquering worlds. They had been systematically destroying entire civilizations. On the mining world of Christos, they had enslaved the entire population and worked millions of Valani to death in dangerous chemical mines. On the agricultural world of Verdania, they had strip-mined the surface and poisoned the water, killing every living thing on the planet. This isn't war, Dr. Cole said as he documented the evidence. This is genocide on an industrial scale. Dr. Adams treated thousands of Valani refugees who had escaped from Korthak's prison camps. Many of them had injuries that would never heal completely. All of them had mental scars from watching their families and friends murdered by Korthak's soldiers. "I don't understand," Coordinator Zephes said to Jake during one of their meetings. "How can any species be so cruel? We Villani have conflicts sometimes, but we always talk until we find solutions. We could never imagine doing such terrible things to other living beings." Jake found it difficult to explain. Not all species develop the same way. Humans learned long ago that there are some people who only understand force. We had to become warriors to protect ourselves from those who would hurt innocent people. "But how do you keep from becoming like them?" Zephes asked. "How do you use violence without becoming violent yourselves?" It was a question that Jake had wrestled with his entire career. We remember why we fight. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight to protect people who can't protect themselves. And we never forget that our enemies are still living beings, even when they've done terrible things. Admiral Kelly established a joint human-Vellani tribunal to judge the captured Korthak's war criminals. It was the first time in galactic history that two different species had worked together to create a legal system. The Vellani contributed their deep understanding of ethics and the value of all life. Humans provided their experience with justice and the need to prevent future crimes. The trials lasted for months. Hundreds of Korthak's officers and soldiers were brought before the court to answer for their actions. Many of them could not understand why they were being punished for doing what their culture had always taught them was normal. "We were strong and they were weak," one Korthak's captain testified. "In nature, the strong take from the weak. This is the way of the universe." "No," replied Coordinator Zephes, speaking for the court. "Strength is not about taking from others. True strength is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That is what these humans have shown us." While the trials continued, Amy Stone worked with Villale scientists to rebuild their damaged worlds. The collaboration produced amazing results. Vellani crystal technology, which could grow and repair itself, was combined with human engineering knowledge to create entirely new types of construction. "We're not just rebuilding," Amy explained to Jake during one of his visits to the reconstruction sites. "We're building something better. The new cities will be stronger and more beautiful than anything either of our species could have created alone." The Vellani offered to share their advanced technologies with humanity as payment for the rescue. Their medical devices could heal injuries that human doctors had always considered permanent. Their environmental restoration tools could clean polluted worlds in a fraction of the time it would take human technology. Their communication arrays could send messages across the galaxy almost instantly. "This is not payment," Coordinator Zephes told Admiral Kelly during the formal ceremony. "This is the beginning of friendship between our peoples. You saved us not because you wanted something from us, but because it was the right thing to do. We want to share what we have because we believe you will use it to help others, just as you helped us." Dr. Adams was chosen to head the new interspecies medical exchange program. Her work treating both human and Vellani injuries during the crisis had made her the natural choice to lead cooperation between the species. "This is just the beginning," she told Jake as they watched Vellani children playing with human soldiers in one of the refugee camps. "We're going to learn so much from each other." But even as they celebrated their victory and planned for the future, Jake knew that this was only the first chapter in a much larger story. The galaxy was huge, and there were probably other species out there who needed help. There might also be other empires, like the Korthaks, looking for weak targets to exploit. "Admiral," Jake said to Kelly during their final meeting in the Vellani system, "I think we're going to need to stay ready. This won't be the last time peaceful people need someone to protect them." Admiral Kelly nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing." Earth Command is already talking about creating a permanent intervention force. Something tells me you'd be interested in commanding it. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about all the worlds out there where good people might be suffering, while bad people did whatever they wanted. Yes, ma'am. I think I would be very interested in that. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching ships from 2 different worlds working together in perfect harmony. The Velani Embassy Station orbited Earth like a giant crystal flower, its transparent walls catching and reflecting the light of the sun in patterns that changed throughout the day. Inside the station, human and Velani scientists worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible for either species. Alone, children from both worlds played together in the station's gardens, learning each other's languages and customs. It was a symbol of hope that Jake never got tired of looking at. Admiral Morrison, came a familiar voice behind him. Jake turned to see Lisa Park approaching, wearing the blue uniform of the newly created diplomatic corps. She had been promoted from communications officer to Earth's first alien ambassador, and she wore the responsibility well. It's still just. Captain to you, Lisa, Jake said with a smile. How are the treaty negotiations going? Better than anyone expected, Lisa replied, joining him at the large window. The Velani Council has agreed to share their crystal technology with Earth in exchange for our help setting up defense systems around their worlds. But more importantly, they want to create a mutual protection agreement. Jake nodded. The Velani had learned hard lessons about the dangers that existed in the galaxy. They were still peaceful by nature, but they were no longer naive about the need for protection. Any word from the other exploration fleets? Jake asked. Lisa's expression became more serious. That's actually why I came to find you. We've received reports from 3 different sectors. The Rigel expedition found evidence of 2 more civilizations that were completely destroyed by unknown attackers. The Andromeda scouts discovered a species called the Threndi, who are fighting off some kind of artificial intelligence that's trying to wipe them out. And yesterday, we got a distress call from the Centauri region. Jake felt his heart rate increase. Another distress call? A species called the Morvani. They're being invaded by something they call the machine swarms. Their message was very brief before it cut off, but they specifically asked for help from the warriors who saved the Velani. Jake looked out at the peaceful scene below. Then, back at Lisa. How long before the new fleet is ready? The intervention fleet? Admiral Kelly says another 2 weeks for final preparations. But Jake, this is different from the Velani situation. You'll have 12 ships instead of just 1. And half of them will be equipped with hybrid human Velani technology. Plus you'll have mixed crews. Jake thought about that. The idea of humans and Velani working together on the same ships had seemed impossible just months ago. But the joint training programs had been incredibly successful. Velani navigators could plot courses through space in ways that human minds couldn't quite grasp, while human tactical officers brought military experience that the peaceful aliens had never needed before. Speaking of mixed crews, Lisa continued, Dr. Adams wanted me to tell you that the medical integration program is ahead of schedule. She's trained 50 human doctors in Velani biology and 30 Velani healers in human medicine. And Amy Stone says the engineering exchange has produced some amazing results, such as shield generators that can protect entire planets, engines that run on crystalline energy matrices, and weapons that can disable enemy ships without killing the crews inside. The Velani insistence on preserving life, even enemy life, has actually made our military technology more effective. Jake smiled at that. It was so typical of the Velani to find ways to make war less deadly while making peace more secure. A young ensign approached them with a message pad. Admiral Morrison? Admiral Kelly needs to see you in the Fleet Command Center. She says it's urgent. Jake followed the ensign through the station's corridors, past laboratories where human and Villani scientists worked on projects that would have been science fiction just a year ago. In one lab, researchers were growing new types of crystal computers that could think almost like living beings. In another, doctors were testing healing devices that could regrow lost limbs in a matter of hours. The Fleet Command Center was buzzing with activity. Admiral Kelly stood at the central display, surrounded by holographic star charts and tactical projections. She looked up as Jake entered. "Jake, we've got a problem." "That distress call from the Morvani? We just received a follow-up message." "The situation is worse than we thought." The main display showed a region of space that Jake didn't recognize. Red symbols marked dozens of star systems, while yellow indicators showed the positions of unknown enemy forces. "What exactly are we looking at?" Jake asked. Admiral Kelly manipulated the display, zooming in on one particular system. "The machine swarms aren't just attacking the Morvani. According to this new intelligence, they're artificial constructs left over from some ancient war. They've been dormant for thousands of years, but something woke them up. Now they're spreading across this entire sector, destroying every form of organic life they encounter." Jake studied the tactical situation. "How many worlds are we talking?" "About? At least 40 inhabited systems, maybe 60. The Morvani estimate that over 20 billion people are in immediate danger." Admiral Kelly's expression was grim. "And Jake, these machines learn from every battle. Each time they fight someone, they adapt their tactics and technology to counter whatever resistance they face. What about the other species in that region? Are any of them fighting back?" "A few are trying, but most of them are like the Villani were. Peaceful civilizations with no real military experience. They're being systematically exterminated." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. When he had answered the Villani distress call, he had been thinking about saving one species from one enemy. Now he was looking at a threat that could consume entire sectors of the galaxy. "How soon can the intervention fleet be ready?" he asked. 72 hours if we push the final preparations," Admiral Kelly replied. "But Jake, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? The Korthaks were bullies, but these machines sound like something much more dangerous. You could be leading your people into a fight they can't win." Jake thought about the Villani children playing in the station's gardens. He thought about the Morvani families, who were probably hiding in terror while machines hunted them through their cities. He thought about all the peaceful species scattered across the galaxy who had never imagined that such evil could exist. "Admiral, when I was a kid, my grandfather told me a story about Earth's history. He said there was once a time when evil people tried to conquer the world and kill everyone who was different from them. Good people from many nations had to work together to stop them. It was the biggest war Earth had ever seen." "I remember that story from history class," Admiral Kelly said. "My grandfather said that the people who fought in that war didn't do it because they were sure they could win. They did it because they knew what would happen if they didn't try." Jake looked at the star chart showing billions of people in danger. "These machines might be more dangerous than anything we've faced before, but if we don't try to stop them, who will?" Admiral Kelly nodded slowly. "Then we'd better make sure you have the best possible chance of success. I'm authorizing the deployment of our newest experimental weapons. And Jake, I'm also sending word to the Villani Council. If they're willing, I'd like to request some of their ships to join your fleet. Do you think they'll agree to fight in another war so soon after their own?" Admiral Kelly smiled. "Coordinator Zephy's sent a message yesterday. She said, and I quote, 'If the humans are willing to risk their lives to save strangers, then the Villani must be willing to do the same. It is time for us to learn how to be protectors, not just survivors.'" Jake felt a surge of pride and affection for their crystal-skinned allies. Then I guess we're going to war again. 3 days later, Jake stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge, having been replaced by the much larger and more powerful vessel Guardian. Around him, a fleet of 12 ships prepared to jump to hyperspace. Half were human vessels equipped with the latest Earth technology. The other half were Vellani ships that looked like living crystals, but carried weapons that could level mountains. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, announced his new navigation officer, a Vellani named Christos, whose ability to plot courses through dangerous space was already legendary among human pilots. Communications are clear across all vessels, reported his communications officer, a human woman named Janet Cross, who had learned to speak perfect. Vellani, during the integration training. Jake looked at the mixed crew around him. Humans and aliens working together as naturally as if they had been doing it for years. In the corner of the bridge, Dr. Adams worked with a Vellani healer named Harmony to prepare medical supplies for the unknown challenges ahead. Admiral Morrison. Came Admiral Kelly's voice over the long-range communicator. The fleet is authorized for departure. Bring our people home safe and try to save as many innocent lives as you can. Understood, Admiral. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Jake settled into his command chair and looked at the stars on the main screen. Somewhere out there, 20 billion people were waiting for help that might never come.